So as I'm sure you're all very much aware, AAA gaming has been struggling for a while, with overbloated budgets, constant layoffs, not holding on to the core principles that make franchises successful. It's kind of a given that a lot of these corporations that take over the franchises, that take over these formerly legendary studios, would eventually fall apart, and we're kind of beginning to see exactly that happen. Games that used to be made with budgets in the 10 to maybe 50 million budget window, I guess you could say, are now being made with 200 to 500 million dollar budgets, which of course creates the problem of how are they going to get their money back? Now, some franchises turn to microtransactions, and this is successful enough. It creates quite a bit of money. In fact, as I'm sure you're aware, singular cosmetic mounts in World of Warcraft outsold the game of StarCraft 2, the entire game, which is mind-boggling, but also very understandable. It feels like a smaller purchase, and usually it is, but because of this, more people buy it, even though, realistically, you're not actually getting your money's worth for the value. This, over time, has caused a lot of people to lose faith in AAA studios and AAA franchises, which is why so many people have turned to indie games. But Bellular here is going to be talking to us about why AAA is struggling and why spending is flat. I don't know what that means, but we're going to find out.
Okay, let's talk about the $100 elephant in the room, because the
GTA 6 is planned to be $100. I saw that and I was like, this is just my take, I'm going to say it and then I'm going to let Bellier speak about it. I genuinely hope that they actually put out GTA 6 for $100, because apparently, like, the budget is completely bloated on that. I hope that it's $100, and I hope that it doesn't even crack 1 million sales, just so it kills the franchise. Just so it kills the studio that tried to pull that, just to teach them a lesson of, yeah, don't do that. That's my take on it. I hope they do it, and I hope they fail really, really hard.
internet is wrestling with a rumor that feels rather shocking, that Grand Theft Auto 6 may launch with a $100 RRP price tag, right? That's the box price of the game. And your gut reaction is probably the same as mine. That's bullshit. That's too much.
No, I absolutely believe it. And I absolutely hope it fails.
And that is fair. But this story actually goes a bit deeper than just the sticker shock, because we've actually been here before. Back in 2023, there were unsubstantiated rumors that had people worried about a $150 price point for GTA.
That's more than 100. That is for sure more than 100.
6. Now that did obviously not materialize, but this time it's based on an analyst sharing his TLDR of private discussions that he says are actually happening amongst people in the AAA sector.
So the $150 one unsubstantiated, the $100 one actually substantiated. My theory is that the $150 one was also real, and they kind of just snuck it out to see what people's reaction would be to it. And when everybody said, "Oh, if it's $150, I just won't buy it," they pulled back.
$50 was obviously absurd, but $100, well, that's not really as absurd.
But it is still very much absurd. It is very much absurd. $80 is too much. Seriously, $150 is a collector's edition, right? And $100 is a deluxe edition. You now want to sell a base game for $100? Oh, we have to. No, you don't. No, you don't. What you need to do is you need to stop spending so much money on the budget. That's what you need to do.
Especially coming from Take-Two Interactive. So the anxiety that people have is not a baseless thing, and again, that is Take-Two's fault, but not just what they're known for recently, like say Grand Theft Auto 5 not having narrative DLC because it doesn't pay in comparison to Shark Card.
Yeah.
the Zynga acquisition, horrible sports game monetization, and all of that stuff. No, it's because Take-Two are the very company who led the charge on the increase from $60 to $70 as the AAA standard.
I can count on my right hand here the amount of games that I've paid $70 for.
But here's where it gets more complicated. You and I may be adamantly opposed.
For context, those games were... And that's like full price. For context, that was Witcher 3 and Elden Ring. No, Elden Ring was $60. That it's just Witcher 3, I think it was. Wait, no, both of those were $60. I have never paid $70 for a video game in my life.
Opposed to paying $100, but many people obviously are not, because Deluxe Edition Season Pass.
And by the way, I say this because I don't think anybody should. I think if you see a price tag that big, you should not buy it. It's a video game. Buy something else. I guarantee there's something better for the same for the same experience at a lower price. I guarantee.
Passes, premium bundles, all of those things.
Hell, yeah, play Fortnite if you want to just fuck around and shoot at things. Yeah, play Fortnite.
We also all know the AAA budgets are kind of ballooning, and it's not just the big, evil corpo types that are saying this. This is a pretty glib tweet that came from Larian's publishing director. Obviously, he's poking the thing with a stick, but he did tweet, "You're not supposed to say this out loud."
Yeah, he's right. He goes into detail. Let's see if Bellier talks about the detail.
The point is, actually, this is kind of what they're all thinking.
The guy does go into detail. He talks about how, yes, budgets are getting insane for some of these. This was always going to happen because of how much the budgets are ballooning. And it's expected, but he also understands that people aren't going to pay that price for a video game.
So let's get into the story. What kicks it off is this. It's Matthew Ball's State of Gaming 2025 report, and it suggests that some players in the industry are quietly hoping for Rockstar to break the $70 ceiling. Of course, not just for themselves, but to trigger an industry-wide price reset, basically pushing $50 up to $60, $60 to $70, all the way up the chain.
I think that this will only occur if the $100 increase is successful. It's kind of the same thing with Skull and Bones, right? They said, quadruple A video game, and then the game sucked, and then nobody had the balls to say quadruple A again.
And this is obviously not just analyst speculation. Whenever Larian's publishing director effectively, confirmed it with a cheeky, "You're not supposed to say that out loud," he was really just reiterating a point that he also made.
Yeah, he said it here. Almost all games should cost more at a base level because the cost of making them is outpacing pricing trends, but I don't think we'll get there with DLC promises so much as quality and communication. Everyone's just waiting for GTA 6 to do it.
Last August when he talked about rising development costs and inflation as well. But of course, he gets to say that from the position of selling people Baldur's Gate 3.
And not to mention, he does present it from the position of, yes, I understand that this is bad. Yes, I understand that people don't want to pay this much for the games. This is, however, something that a lot of these publishers are waiting for and are going to be pushing for and are going to be doing.
That's a game with such an absurd value proposition that it still has 24-hour peaks of 75k on Steam.
Meanwhile, Veilguard.
I mean, if you were to pay $100 for Baldur's Gate 3, but you're still playing it a year and a half off.
I do think that Baldur's Gate 3 probably was worth $100, like in general. But I highly doubt GTA 6 will be.
That's certainly more value than...
Hell, I don't think a single GTA game would be worth that much. But then again, I'm just somebody with good taste in video games, so I've never played a GTA game.
Most AAAs are giving you. But it's not just him. This point is cropping up everywhere. As an example, Capcom's president just recently at Tokyo Game Show talked about development costs exploding, quote, 100 times higher since the Famicom days.
That's... Yeah. I do think that a lot of this can be attributed to inflation, yes, but also a lot of it does come from just bad budgeting. Because I've seen it, right? Like, the same exact stuff that used to have one price now is costing 3 to 5 times more. And there's no way inflation accounts for all of that. There's no way. There's no way. I would sooner believe that you're just hiring too many people and most of them aren't doing a damn thing to push the game forward. I would sooner believe that. It's just what we're seeing is the cost or one of the costs of design by committee.
Now, obviously, this was not him saying, games cost $50 in the Famicom. Okay, we need to charge people $5,000 for games. No, he's not saying that because games sell so many more copies now, but there is a point there that he's making, and it's rather funny considering one of the older rumors because paying $50 for a game in 1985 is the equivalent of $145.70 in today's money.
Yes, unfortunately, nobody else's salary has gone up that much.
Which, funnily enough, is near that original GTA rumor and is not so far away from some digital collector's editions.
We're not talking about Diablo 4. It was a shit game. It came out. It died. We're moving on.
To take it to Grand Theft Auto, then, it's going to be one of the most expensive games ever made. It will be absurdly huge. Some people will say
they claim
that justifies a price hike, that this is basically Rockstar's excuse to nudge everything up by $10 for the whole industry. But Grand Theft Auto is not your typical game. Rockstar is operating in a completely different universe. Their shark card revenue is so substantial that another analyst, Daniel Ahmad, suggests that actually they could lower the price point of GTA 6 just for the sake of building up the GTA Online player base.
They could. A lot of companies have done this where they basically just, I say companies, like game companies, have done this where they have this game that was really successful with the premium price, right? But now most of the money that they're making comes, and by most I mean like 90% of the money they make, comes from microtransactions. And so at that point, what they do is, and Blizzard kind of tried to do this with Overwatch, they go and they take out that entry cost and they make it so you can pay that money and it counts as basically you're buying a microtransaction, right? And another thing they might do is just like, hey, everybody else who's already in the game gets this value already, which, you know, it's free for them for all intents and purposes. It just buys them a bunch of goodwill from people. And so they cut out that initial price. It goes from $60 to get the game to $0. So now it's free to play. And if you pay those $60 right at the start, you get like a good value on the microtransactions. And that way, immediately they get a surge of new players. A surge of those players is going to go, hey, you know what? Sure, I'll pay that money. And then they have more people in the ecosystem which are going to buy the microtransactions, are going to do all that stuff, and they find that usually, didn't happen with Overwatch, but it did happen with Overwatch, at least at the start, before they rug pulled everybody. They find that the sales of microtransactions increase significantly.
To sell more shark cards. The point basically is they're in that rare tier along with Call of Duty where they can just spend $700 million in a game and be completely justified.
Yeah.
We actually covered it in this video a little bit ago.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, you have companies like EA making games like Veilguard with insanely bloated budgets. It was so obviously insanely bloated. Just look at the advertisement. Look how long it took, how many times it got stopped and then restarted and reset and restarted and reset and restarted. The budget on that thing must have been insane when you take all of that into account. And all they said was like, get us 3 million copies sold. They couldn't even do that, right? But Activision with Call of Duty, they know, and I guess, you know, GTA, they know what their players want, right? I think it's slop. But so's McDonald's, right? And that shit sells.
Now, no one seriously thinks that Grand Theft Auto needs to be $100 a pop to be financially viable. But what we all do, I think, trust is Take-Two's desire for more money. Because obviously they want that. And the industry's desire for Take-Two to be the thin end of the wedge, for them to take the hit so everybody else can charge $80 without having a PR shitstorm. And that's a justified worry.
There's been a few games that came out that were $80. I think Destiny 2 has been at $8 at one time or another. I think there's been a couple, and yeah, it didn't work out. Not because there was a PR shitstorm, but because people didn't buy the game because nobody agrees that it's worth that price. I think for GTA 6 to come out, be $100, and then still be successful, it would need to have more than just content creators being really happy with it, because content creators are always going to be happy with it, right? It's GTA, right? They're going to jump into it, oh my god, this is so good, even if it sucks, right? The game will need to be really, really good. It will need to have similar amounts of sales, actual sales, not just be monetarily viable. It'll have to have a similar number of sales as what it had before, even at $100. Because otherwise, it's fucked. And it's important to remember, yes, inflation has gone up. People's salaries haven't.
Because it happened before. You know, it really is remarkable how quickly the $70 price point solidified, and when that happened, Take-Two led the charge. Then PlayStation's first-party titles followed suit, and the strategy was pretty damn simple. They used next-gen consoles as their cover for the increase, and
that is true. Console gaming continues to be a fucking parasite on the industry.
even Nintendo eventually joined in. They leveraged as well Tears of the Kingdom's massive hype to push their own prices up. But
Didn't Tears of the Kingdom suck? Like it. Every person that's talked about it, like compared to Breath of the Wild, like everybody said it feels like Breath of the Wild, but like somehow shittier.
actually, here's where it gets kind of interesting. Not everybody could even make that work. Take Redfall, right? It completely face-planted at $70.
Because it sucked dick, brother.
Let's be real, it would have face-planted at just about anything else.
It would have face-planted as a free-to-play game.
But I bring it up because when analysts started to notice quick discounts on $70 games, they questioned Strauss Zelnick. Strauss is, by the way, the CEO of Take-Two. He's quite the fellow, sort of vampire daddy energy. Anyway, his
What? I'm sorry. Strauss Zelnick? Vampire Dad? Okay, yes.
response
Carry on.
was rather telling. He said, "We're not seeing pushback." Now, the emphasis
Hey, man. Hey, that's a you problem, brother. We're not getting no pushback. Our game is good. You guys are suffering.
on "we're" is on our half, or our behalf, right? So it's not like he said, well, we aren't seeing a pushback.
Yeah, but this has a point, right? What we're seeing is consumers are seeking to limit their spending by going either to the stuff they really, really care about, blockbusters, or to value, and sometimes it could be both. What this basically translates to is, yes, we increase the price because we know that our game is going to sell no matter what price we put it at, whether it be on sale or to the people who have that money, the people are going to get that right away. Or better yet, instead of getting our game and then also getting something else, they will just get our game. And they'll just play our game, which keeps them in our ecosystem, which sells our microtransactions, because they will feel like they have no other choice, right? That's what this is translating into. They'll get the blockbusters, which GTA 6 usually is, GTA usually is, COD usually is, like those are the blockbusters. If you look at the 10 most profitable games, like Call of Duty and GTA are up there, along with fucking other slop type games, which, you know, slop sells. Go figure. That's why I make React stuff and why I post every day, because it's the type of content I like to make, it's the type of shit that I like to talk about, and it's the type of stuff that people like to watch. So, it works because people like it. That's why it's a blockbuster. And if that blockbuster is really, really good and offers the value of, yes, you're paying $100, but you're going to be playing it a year or two from now, yeah, it's also value. So yeah, he's got a point here. He's not wrong here at all.
our behalf, right? So it's not like he said, well, we aren't seeing a pushback, but literally he did say we're not seeing a pushback. And I think there's a big point there. The reality is that certain publishers like Take-Two, like Capcom, PlayStation, they can...
I don't know what you're talking about. We're not seeing any pushback. Like, look at that jawline. That is the jawline of a man who would look you dead in the eye and say, that sounds like a you problem, buddy.
command those prices because of their track record and game quality. I mean,
Talks about a track record, game quality, and shows fucking Horizon.
Monster Hunter Wilds, that's going to share the same RRP as Redfall, which is a bit ridiculous when you think about them.
Which is why Redfall face-planted and Monster Hunter games never do. Need I fucking remind you that the last time that the Monster Hunter Worlds dudes came out, Capcom came out and said, hey guys, remember, play our game, the fucking player number spiked back up to like 1 million. It was ridiculous.
Actually, this has gotten to the point where Saber Interactive CEO, when talking about Space Marine 2, said that they actually felt they had to price their game at $70 because they feared that players would see anything lower as a red flag.
That's actually... I can understand that. Like, this is something that that people have... Not people, but like psychiatrists... Psychiatrists? Is that the people? Whatever. Analysts have kind of seen with, like, medicine, for example. People tend to go for the more expensive medicine in a lot of cases because they assume that the cheaper stuff isn't as effective. At the same time, I think Space Marine 2 would have sold and been seen as just as good if it had sold for $60.
For quality. And his point actually does make sense for consumer psychology. In a world where an audience expects $70, if you publish your game at $60, people will then assume that that's you admitting that you're actually not able to command what the industry now sees as a full price.
The only people who see $70 as a full price are consumer cucks.
Right, so
Dick eaters.
it is basic sales
Shit lovers.
psychology here. Now,
Booty lickers.
yes, in a world where every
Foot sniffers.
customer is a fully informed, dispassionate, rational actor, well, I think the entire global economy would look rather different.
True.
The reality is, we're humans, we're emotional, we're not always rational, and
And a lot of us are fucking retarded.
we are prone to fun psychological biases. So in a world with a $70 standard, if one game is 60, people will begin to think, why is it 60?
I mean, yeah, if they're fucking ignorant.
There must be a reason why it's not the default.
Yeah, it's 60 because games should not be 70. They should be 60.
That deviation, well, that adds in some ambiguity, and that means you're less likely to make the sale. And the upshots are fascinating. Capcom are going to make more money than ever with the new Monster Hunter, but we are seeing these discounts being piled on faster than ever. But a 20% discount on a $70 game is actually
Yeah, it's, I believe, 56.
more revenue than a 20% discount on a $60 game,
Which would be 48.
but it still has the psychological benefits of a 20% discount. So it still works, and this serves to defend everybody's margin within the industry, which certainly goes back to Matthew Ball's point about the whole industry
Matthew Balls? His name is Balls? That's funny.
wanting a $10 increase to cascade up. But actually, there's something we've missed. We're already well past $70.
True.
It's time to enter the big think dimension. So, do you value something objectively, right, based on its input costs plus some margin? Or do you think something is valued based on what someone in the real market is willing to pay for it?
Both.
I'd say that at the very least for things that we experience.
But mostly the second one. Because, like, here's the thing. I make cookies. It costs me $20 to make this cookie jar. That means I need to sell it at $40. Would you pay $40 for this amount of cookies? You wouldn't. You'd be a fucking idiot to do so. That means that this is a non-viable product. End of story. This product, non-viable. Now I'm making little Tic Tacs. Each of these costs me 50 cents to make. So I sell it for $1. This is viable. This is not. They're not the same. You're right. However, if I can take this and instead of $20, I make it for, $2, and then I sell it at $4. Now you go, okay, that's a little expensive, but if it's really good, sure, I'll pay it. So at the end of the day, the problem is on the studios. You're spending 200, 300, 400, 500, fucking... You're spending so much money on these insanely bloated budgets. You're paying celebrities who don't know the first dick about voice acting to voice act your characters, instead of spending that money on, I don't know, lowering the cost of the fucking game so that you can sell it at a price that more people... And here's the thing, right? If you sell it for $60 and you sell 2 copies, congratulations, you've made more money than if you sell it 1 copy for $100. Wow, right? They need to lower the cost to make the games, not increase the selling point, because people will not be willing to buy the games, all right? We're already seeing this happening with these studios constantly laying people off because, whoop, you failed one time and we put $500 million into your product and you gave us back 50. Looking at you, Veilguard. Yes, everybody in the writing team got fired because everybody in the writing team was fucking responsible. Everybody who gets fired from one of these studios, it's because the budget was too fucking big. And then the game didn't make nearly enough back. Some situations where that's not the case. Looking at you, Activision. Oh, record profits, but also 300 people get fired and our CEO gets a bonus.
Like art, it's the latter, right? That's why millions of people buy games above that $69.99 RRP. The $100 price tag that kicked off this whole discussion has already happened. It just has happened indirectly because you see that $10 price rise from $60 to $70? Well, $69.99 of today's dollars is in fact worth $57.75 in 2020's dollars. Yeah, inflation's a bitch. That's why Space Marine 2 had masses of people paying $30 extra to have some cosmetics, and I think most importantly, advanced.
Oh yeah, no, the Space Marine 2 is one that I did pay the extra, yeah.
Access.
Not because I wanted to pay for the game, but because I wanted to support the studio. And that's kind of it, right? At the end of the day, I will pay the extra to support a smaller studio that I believe in, not to support a gaming giant that has made the industry worse with every iteration of their product.
Just about every major game these days does advanced access. Obviously, it's more money, because with it, publishers have found their workaround. They know that people who buy a game on day one are price insensitive compared to the average
That is true.
customer, because they're the people who still buy games on day one with full knowledge that deep discounts still do happen in the industry.
Yeah, and they happen within like 2 or 3 months.
And that means that they are the very people who you can laser target with premium advanced.
Yeah, I saw that Doom Dark Ages is... Hold the fuck on. Let me click my second screen here and check that out. Yeah, it's $80, not $70. Euros are worth more than dollars. What? Oh wait, these are pounds. These are pounds sterling. Never mind. Never mind.
Access. And in a way, we know part of the reason why. Budgets are indeed exploding. Spider-Man 1 was said to cost like $100 million.
And they should have been able to maintain that budget. I don't give a shit.
Its sequel, that came out just 5 years later, cost $315 million.
Completely ridiculous. I guarantee that they spent most of that money not on the actual game, but on random bullshit that just doesn't matter. Like, yes, the voice actors are going to need a higher salary because they're being rehired. Absolutely. I understand that. Most of the people working there did not get a 3 times pay increase. That means a lot of this went into advertising, which they did not need. They did not need that much advertising because, here's the fucking kicker, the best advertisement is Spider-Man 1. You already have the best advertisement you could buy. People's opinion of your game. All you had to do is just 2 or 3 ads that you kept playing and pay a guy to be on social media drumming up the hype. And by a guy, I mean like a 16-year-old person who spends like 90% of their day on Twitter. That's it. That's who you pay. I say 16-year-old, a 20-year-old who spends 90% of their day on Twitter. Pay that person. All they have to do is just drum up hype for the game on Twitter. You pay that person a good salary, not minimum fucking wage. Pay that person a good salary. I guarantee you drive that cost way down.
Which,
that could have been like 150 million instead of 300 million. Guaranteed.
by the way, you can't just put down to inflation. It's also an industry-wide trend that I'll be diving into soon on the channel. But
thank you. I wish you would do it on this video.
But for now, I want you to check this out. This is from Matthew's report, and it's the RRP of Grand Theft Auto games from 1997, and it shows nominal price and inflation-adjusted price.
So, nominal price. In real terms, $70 GTA 6 would be the cheapest ever GTA, 30% less than its original 2D entry, and 24% less than GTA 4 and GTA 5. $91 would be average. This is not real. For one reason, and one reason only, right? Yes, technically through inflation, it's the cheapest. However, compare it to people's average salary. If you compare it to the salary of people in these times, in each of these times, you will realize very quickly that at the end of the day, this is the biggest fucking chunk. Because while yes, absolutely, inflation makes it the cheapest, but at the same time, salaries have not gone up that much compared to inflation.
It's kind of funny because Grand Theft Auto 1 would cost $100 in today's money. It almost fits the story too well. But if you look at this graph, you see that it actually does not tell the full story, not even close, because it would be disingenuous to look at that and think, oh, Strauss Zelnick and the lovely people at Take-Two Interactive have protected me against inflation by not hiking their prices even more.
Yeah.
That is obviously not the case because that's not their business model. To just take that chart would be to omit shark cards and everything else that goes on. Because the move from 60 to 70 was not enough. It was just part of a whole stack of measures to increase revenue.
Without many new players, console PC growth relies on pricing, yet publishers struggles to keep them. Each decade, package prices fall 10 to 20% in real terms. Yeah, how about instead of, trying to steal from the few customers that you already have, how about you just lower the cost of production? How about you work on that? How about you work on efficiency rather than working on increasing your price, you lazy fucking bums?
Per customer without going so hard that it sparks deep outrage. But here's the thing, this distortion will hurt them.
Of course it will.
Within Matthew's report is a rather shocking thing about consumer spending. By now I think most of us agree that a $100 RRP largely wouldn't work because customers would just reject it and wouldn't see it as a good value.
Of course. The only way that any customer will consider that a good value is if at the end of everything, they buy the game, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 years later, that person is still playing the game. Which, to be fair, GTA 5 did that. If we go and look at GTA 5 charts, just on Steam, right? Just on Steam, it still has 187,000 24-hour peak. And that's 12 years later, right? 10 years. Right, because on PC it was only 10 years ago. So 10 years later, that's still 190,000 people playing this game. 24-hour peak. Actually went up to 212 last week on Sunday. That's insane. That is, in fact, cuckoo bananas.
And that's because the large upfront purchase is the more psychologically
Wasn't this...
it as a good value. And that's because the
I thought this was AI.
large upfront purchase is the more
Wait. What the fuck was on her fingers? Oh, it's those nails. Ugh.
upfront purchase is the more psychologically expensive way to get some money. That's why you've got the upcharges and the microtransactions growing over time. Those are just little cuts here and there. So not only is this, for all of the reasons that we know, but there's a
Yeah, now the major problem with so many of these AAA companies increasing their prices is that they are increasing the amount of money that you're paying for the game and then decreasing the percentage of the game that amount of money pays for. Because used to be you'd pay the full price, which apparently used to be a much bigger amount because of inflation. But also, you got the entire game. No microtransactions. Everything that was in the game could be acquired because you paid that amount of money at the start. And no more of that is the case when it comes to AAA, right? With Veilguard, they said, oh, we're not making DLCs. We all know why that was. It's because they knew the game was going to fail. But every other time, you pay for the game, and then they say, oh, by the way, here's an expansion with the rest of the story. Now, Awakening was good. Really good, right? It was by far the best DLC of any Dragon Age game. You've got the fucking Inquisition simps on Twitter going, oh my god, Trespasser was so good! Ah! The only DLC expansion for Dragon Age that ever mattered, that actually drove the story forward, that actually deepened our understanding of the world of Dragon Age, was Awakening. Legacy kind of got there a little bit because it revealed Corypheus, but at the end of the day, the architect kind of created the mystery. Corypheus just answered the question, right? And this is the same with every single other game. Look at Diablo 4. You pay for the collector's edition, and you still didn't get the full game. Right? I wouldn't know. I didn't play the game. I genuinely took one look at that, and I was like, ew. And then other people played it, and yeah, they finished the game, and then they went, ew. I was right every time. But, seriously, they want to increase the price while lowering the quality. You can't do that.
a deeper hidden sort of reason and risk here, and it's one we're about to face. Imagine Grand Theft Auto 6 ends up costing $80. Now,
That would... Oh my god,
compare that to...
I think $80 would probably still kind of... Like, it's icky to me. It's icky. Icky. I look at a game... Most of these games that come out for $70, I look at them and I go, I don't want to pay that much. Like, I go on my wish list. Black Myth Wukong, $80. First Berserker, 80. I said 80. 60. First Berserker, 60. Kingdom Come 2, 60. Ghost of Tsushima, 60. Doom the Dark Ages, 80. I'm not fucking paying $80. No. I keep saying dollars, euros. I'm not fucking paying 80 euros. I'm not doing that. I am not going to be doing that. Why? Oh, very simple. Because I can just fucking wait for a sale. And I think more people should be fucking conscious of the value of their money, right? I understand that there's people who have the cash to just throw at the computer like that. But you still shouldn't do it. You still shouldn't do it.
say, some skin bundles. It's the cost of a few skins for our Grand Theft Auto. Now, for Grand Theft Auto, Daniel...
Yeah, by the way, if you pay $70 for skin bundles, just call them up and say that you're willing to let them shit in your mouth directly. Like, I feel like you could just save yourself so much time and money.
Ahmad is right. The RRP tweaks that Take-Two can make will pale in comparison to shark cards over the life of that game. And that brings me to the big risk here. Our perception of value. Because when you can buy a game that costs over $500 million to make For the price of a few skins in some other game, what does that say about value? What are we paying for? Are we even paying for content now? And here's the data to ram that home.
Package prices matter less given DLC, microtransactions, live service, which raise the spend ceiling. Yet real spending has grown only modestly despite these innovations. Arcade VR, Dota 2 Compendium Battle Pass, Elder Scrolls 4 Horse Armor, Xbox Live. So, wait, which part is the spending? Is this PC, handheld, and consoles? And then arcade and VR. It's like this is a really hard graph to understand because it's not properly. I think that this one here is VR and this one is arcades. Or maybe this is mobile? And then arcade is this, and then VR is above it? Wait, I know. I understand. Okay, so this one at the bottom is console, then handheld is here. So like PlayStation Portable, Vita, all that shit. This is PC, spending a little bit more, and then mobile is all the way here. This is all mobile. Then you've got VR here, and then arcade is just above VR. God damn, mobile gamers are dick eaters.
This is worldwide consumer spending in real terms. That's the killer, in real terms. And what we see is that even with games as money desperate as they seem to be in many cases, the spending is shockingly flat. RRP matters less. But if you look at all of the money that's being spent, well, it's not massively growing, and what you basically realize is the money being spent is going less and less into content, and more into upcharges and microtransactions.
Yeah, because the money being spent on the actual game, budget-wise, is more and more going not to content, not to gameplay, not to quality, but to sparkly little trinkets to make the retards buy it. Because the retards are the ones who are going to spend all of their money on microtransactions. Dick eaters.
It seems
Shit sniffers.
that,
Foot lickers.
again, in
You make up your own. Leave one in the comments. I want to learn more slurs for people who enjoy microtransactions.
real terms, everybody is fighting for a roughly similar number of dollars, your dollars, and that pool of dollars doesn't seem to be going up as quickly as game budgets are, which means that, well,
They need to lower game budgets.
on balance, more of those dollars are going into what I would call low-value upcharges like skins and not game content.
By low value upcharges, what he actually means is upcharges that actually lower the value of the game.
Which is a problem if you're here for actual video games. Now to bring it back to Larian, Baldur's Gate 3 is not full of upcharges and bullshit. The $70 games that it competes against, though, often are full of that bullshit. And of course, those are, the big traditional AAA publisher titles that set expectations industry-wide. $70 works for them, right? Those big AAAs, because they can monetize in so many other ways, with your advanced access, all of your different
I rest my fucking case. Baldur's Gate 3 is a more expansive game than any of this other shit that you see online. Alright? Baldur's Gate 3 was in development for 6 years. $100 to $200 million budget. Why the fuck are we getting other AAA games that were in development for 2 to 3 years, and somehow they clear that by like 2 times? $300 to $500 million budgets. It's completely ridiculous.
bundles and your currencies and all of that stuff.
Like,
With your advanced access, all of your different bundles and your currency.
what here increases the value of the game? None of it. Every single one of these items, every single thing here, this, and this, all of it reduces the value of the game. You want to know why? Because in an RPG, a multiplayer ARPG, especially one that has the ability for you to transmogrify your character, for you to like come up with new fashion for your character to look cool in front of other people, all of it dictates that the game is built around two things. In the case of an ARPG, in an MMORPG, it's around... No, it's around the same two things, actually. It's around player power, which the 4 days early access, actually lowers the value of the game, even though people are stupid and they will buy it. It lowers the value of the game because it means that now you have just bought player power and cosmetic power, which every single thing here lowers the value of the game because you've just bought cosmetic power. You have taken away from yourself your gameplay experience. Congratulations, you fucking moron. You paid to play less.
And all of that stuff. But if you're fighting those companies to make a AAA quality game, like say Larian would be doing, and you're targeting $70, but you're foregoing all of the other ways that those companies earn money on top of the $70, then you are at a disadvantage for not taking up those tactics.
No, they're not. Because here's the thing. Larian was not only successful with Baldur's Gate 3 sales. Larian trumped all of them. Larian made so much money that their studio grew to such an immense degree that they still have that money. And now they're working on their next projects, plural, with their multiple studios that they did not have before. And at the same time, they're still making content for Baldur's Gate 3. I think they just put out the last major update. But at the same time, they still have that money. And at the end of the day, they have everybody's goodwill, because rather than turning around and stabbing you in the back with microtransactions, with upcharges that actually lower the value of your game, they didn't do that. Instead, you paid $70 for a continuously expanding experience, and that's exactly what you got.
Bad. Even beloved games like Space Marine 2 feel the need to do the very...
I do think that they shouldn't have. I understand why they did it, but I do think that the cosmetics of Space Marine 2 are worse than the cosmetics of Space Marine 1. Hear me out here. The cosmetics of Space Marine 2 are very class dependent. Like, as you play with the class, you unlock more for that class by just playing the game a lot. But in Space Marine 1, you had actual pieces of armor tied to achievements. Like, the better you played, the more of these armors you would unlock. And I think that that was really good for the game. And I think that Space Marine 2 would have benefited a lot from having that same type of cosmetics. Now, I understand the idea of wanting, like, a certain level of prestige with your armor. Like, with just leveling up your character. But at the same time, you also want prestige with your skills to be represented in the armor, which they've kind of been introducing with the armor unlocks from beating lethal difficulty for the helmet and the sword and stuff like that. And they've talked about how they're going to include more of that in the future. And I hope they do, right? Because that's accessible to everyone just by playing the game and being good at the game. And it becomes almost a sign that this person that you're in a group with knows what they're doing. This person's good at the game. Look, he's got the helmet. Look, he's got the Hayabusa armor. Look, he's got the survivor's helmet. Look, he's got the fucking skull. That means he beat up a dev that one time in Halo, right? This is stuff that creates a community. It creates a culture. And by making it all paid for, you take that away.
Very expensive premium advanced access. And that's the real point here. The unit economics, the business models, those shape what sorts of games get made. And that matters if you care about games as an art form. I mean, that's why Grand Theft Auto 5 did not have narrative DLC. And looking around the industry, it's probably why we've seen a string of AAA single-player narrative studios die. It's why back in the day, we would actually get plenty of narrative DLCs for games, but nowadays, that just doesn't really seem to be the thing that happens anymore.
Yeah, because people get it. It used to be that a game would come out, and the story would go, and it would be very successful. Warcraft 3, Dragon Age Origins, World of Warcraft, StarCraft, all of this stuff, right? Notice how a lot of these were Blizzard, because back then Blizzard was good, right? And then it would be so successful and that people would want more, right? People would want to know, okay, how does the story continue? Or is there other things that are happening in the game? Like, how does it continue? Like, how does it keep going from here? And so, they would take the money that they made before, and they would make an expansion on the story, continuing the narrative. However, nowadays, what would actually happen is they would make a game, and then they'd go, this part at the end here, take that away, looking at Trespasser, DLC, and others like it. I'm not coming up with a bunch of examples right now. I'm thinking a lot of Dragon Age and Blizzard games. So, Trespasser, take that away from the main story. There you go. This is the main game. And then this is what you can pay for at the end. And it's like, the story is just unfinished, and it genuinely feels like a chunk of content was cut out to be sold back to the player later. And whereas before the expansion felt like a reward for investing in the game, now it feels like you're just taking a piece of the game away from us unless we're good little boys and give you enough money. And at that point, that's insulting. Fuck you. I hope your game fails. I hope your studio shuts down, and I hope you end up flipping burgers.
What's harder, spending untold millions for the chance to sell a new creative $70 game, or just pumping out more $15 to $25 skins to sell to the people you already know you have in the game you've already made? So I guess the question then is, what's going to happen? Well, first, I hate to break it to you, but I can't tell the future. What I will say is I don't think the Grand Theft Auto 6 will cost $100.
I hope it does, and I hope it fails. If it does.
But I think the Early Access edition might, and it will probably...
That's a good point. That's a good point. Maybe the early access will be $100, which, that's perfectly normal. That's already the standard. And then maybe the main game itself will be $80 or $70. I don't know.
Probably be, the most hyped game for at least a lot of people of this entire decade. So if they do decide to, say, have a $30 more expensive Advanced Access Day 1 edition, yeah, it'll cost $100 for sure.
Probably.
Now, if the game ended up having an $80 RRP, right, a $10 increase, that wouldn't really surprise me. Industry-wide, though, would the AAAs like $100? Would they?
Oh, absolutely, they would, and it would cause a lot of games to just die at birth, basically. They'd be DOA. Because nobody's going to pay $100 for Redfall. Nobody's going to pay $100 for 90% of recent AAA games. All they're going to do is they're going to go, okay, let me look at the reviews. Ooh, these reviews are really bad. Or worse yet, these reviews feel really sanitized. And at that point, people aren't going to pay for it. And if they do pay for it, they're going to play for an hour, maybe two, and then go, refund.
Maybe.
Or they're going to play it on GOG. I'm like 6 hours in, and the game just keeps getting worse. Refund.
Happy with 80? Yeah.
I've refunded games on GOG after 10 hours.
Absolutely. But here's the real point and the disingenuous thing.
Like, yeah. Look at this shit, dude. Fucking... What the hell, man? You get early access, an extra collection, deluxe content pack, and then for an additional to additional $30, you get Right to Rule and Founders content. Like, I'm sorry, dude. This is just... This is humiliation. This is a humiliation ritual. I do not see why anybody gives any money to Ubisoft still.
Thing that I see. Yes, industry-wide, the AAAs would love $100.
Actually, it's just something that I've been keeping pace with. Get fucked.
They love $80. They love anything that goes up. And in so many cases, the prime argument will be inflation eroding the dollar, so the price...
No, it's not inflation. They're lying to you. It's not inflation. Inflation didn't triple everything, all right? It didn't. It went up like 20%, which was a big amount, and it shouldn't have gone up that much, but it did. But that's not 300%, it's 20%.
Prices got to go up, and to a degree, yeah, there's a fair argument there, but it does miss other factors that matter. How much are we paying for their own failures of efficiency, their own cost controls, their own stupid bets on 6-year massive life?
I'm so happy. I'm so happy about Suicide Squad failing. That was such a shit game. I'm so fucking happy.
Service titles that cost stupid millions of dollars like Suicide Squad, just as one example. And most importantly of all, how, yes, they may say, well, gamers, back in 2008, if you spent $60 in a game, that's like 87.40 of today's dollars, so you should be paying $90 for a game today. So, do you know what that doesn't really get? I mean, number one, we could talk about median wages not keeping up with inflation.
I mean, you know what it doesn't actually take into account? The fact that back then, you know, I already talked about the wages not keeping up, but it also doesn't keep pace with the fact that back then you'd buy 100% of the game, and now that money buys maybe 80%, maybe 70%, maybe 60% sometimes of the game.
Inflation, but we could also talk about how, you know, back in 2008, when I bought a game...
He's gonna say the thing I said!
Large, I bought the whole game, and that was kind of that. Nowadays... that same amount of money, that $69.99, it's getting you a game, but it's also getting you a gateway to a digital storefront that wants even more money. So yes, inflation has happened, but let's not pretend that that's the only thing that's going on within the games that we're being asked to buy. And look, it's fun to shot call, it's fun to analyze. The thing I care about at the end of the day, the most, is
the game good?
We get good games that have got like real value as like bits of art, bits of experience, the sorts of things that leave players better than they found them. Not
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, something that I don't talk about a lot, right? A lot of people grow from the experiences that they see in media, whether that be in movies, books, or video games. No one grows from modern AAA games because there's no growth to be had. They don't know how to write a good story. And when they try to make a point, rather than giving us an experience, they look you dead in the eye in the camera and say, this is bad, this is good, do what I say, rather than actually giving you an experience. I've been playing Final Fantasy 16 on stream, right? It's an amazing game. Amazing socio-political commentary. And then at the same time, it gives you awesome content from a gameplay perspective. But it still takes the time to make those socio-political points. The struggle against greed, against slavery, against this overarching figure wanting to dominate everything else. It takes the time to make those points, but it does it well. And meanwhile, other games seem to just completely fail. And I understand that Square Enix is a AAA company, but that's why Final Fantasy 16 is able to stand out so much as a unique example of a AAA game that manages to both make its points while also being an amazing experience.
Not just kind of infinite Skinner box slop games. And more, I think the unit economics of the business are not supporting that. So caring about games as a medium, I do see this as really quite a depressing risk. That being said, there's a triple.
I hope it fails. I hope it fails so fucking hard. I so genuinely hope that AAA games that cost way too much to make fail every time. Every fucking time that they do that, I hope it fails.
AAA company on our radar who are very much planning to make, well, the sorts of games that we would want succeed. They're called Remedy, and to understand that story and the context of exploding game budgets, check out this video next.
Well, I might do that some other time, but right now, I think I said everything that I had to say, guys. It's a sad thing to see, but it's still very much real. I hope you guys liked the conversation. This was a long-ass video. If you stuck around this long, leave a like, please. It helps a lot with the algorithm and stuff. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this stuff. And hey, if you disagree with me, leave a dislike too. You know, those also help. They help me know whether or not people agree with me, or if they just don't fucking like the content, or just fucking hate my face. You know, it's a nice face, but not everybody likes it. You know. But with all that being said, I hope to see you guys again next time. Have a good one. Cheers.